But I never liked Columbus.
Hey, what?
In Napoli, a lot of people are not so happy for Columbus, because he was from Genova.
What's the problem with Genoa?
The north of Italy always have the money and the power. They punish the south since hundreds of years. Even today, they put up their nose at us like we're peasants. I hate the north.
Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland, 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 Dixieland.
Tuning in to Dixieland, the Proletariat. We're going to talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Make sure to like us on social media at Dixieland, the Proletariat, or Dixie Prol. And if you want to give your wages to a bunch of rednecks, then subscribe to our Patreon page at patreon.com/DixieProl. Got a lot of cool stuff to give you, including CDs, stickers, and a cookbook. We also have a Spotify playlist with some great artists you also check out. This podcast is brought to you by Newport 100s in a Box, Camel Silver's Black Coffee, Box Wine, and the Treaty of Laramie of 1868. Shout out to our new Patreon subscribers, Kendra and 503 Flo. Our monthly Patreon surplus goes to groups that are run by and or help marginalized people directly. As always, I'm Nelson, joined tonight with...
This is Comrade Kate.
Woo!
And I make the tracks.
And our guest this evening is...
For fuck's sake, Tommy. For fuck's sake.
And our guest this evening is...
Hi, my name is Kiaza, and I'm here to talk about Indigenous history.
Woo! Part 2.
How are you?
I'm exhausted. It's 3 a.m.
Yeah, you really need to tell the boys, like, you know, to meet you where you're at.
Look, I'm the poor Indian here, okay? I can't afford to do this kind of thing. If somebody gives me a chance, I'm going to take it. And then I will complain for the rest of the recording that it is 3 a.m. over here.
No, you should, because it's stupid. It's fucking stupid, and I'm sorry. I wish it was 3 a.m. here.
Time,
by that, I mean, I wish I was there, because you're not in America, and that makes me very jealous.
So what's going to happen is next time we're going to record at 3 a.m. here.
Nelson, don't talk over Kai.
Oh my
God. Talking over women, but can you please not talk over Kai?
Here we go again. God damn it.
I'm back, motherfucker.
Hey, Nelson, what's my name?
Your name is Kai because you're my older sister, and you said I can call you Kai.
Yes. Fine.
All right. Kai. Kiaza. There,
Yeah.
I got it. There, you happy? Oh my God. Okay, can you tell us why white people suck? Part 2.
I have like 7 pages worth of notes, so yeah.
We'll get her done. Let's do it.
Okay, well, whenever I decide to do things like this, just like I said in the last podcast I was on, I always like to introduce myself in my grandmother's language, which is Mohawk. So, Sego Sewaguego, Yonkets Kaeze Piaroya, Ganyagahega, Niwagahon Siota, Tanon Namana, Tanon Ndi. Hello, everyone. My name is Kaeze Piaroya. I am Mohawk, Comanche, and Apache. Thank you for having me. I always introduce myself in my grandmother's language because I believe in exposing people to the indigenous languages of North America. I list my people as a sign of respect and as a formal greeting, but also to show that I am not speaking for other people. I'm a 4th-generation Native educator and public speaker, and today I've been invited to speak about the lands that are traditionally Lakota. I am not Lakota, but I stand in solidarity with them, and I wish to bring their concerns to wider audiences without speaking over them. So, as was, I guess, teased the last time, because we thought we were going to do both parts in one episode, today I'm doing the second part of that, which is about the American monument of Mount Rushmore. I don't know if I can make it sound like there's more quotation marks around that, but so I'm going to be talking about basically the history of the land that the monument was blasted into. And there's a lot more history than you would be able to find online. So I'll start with the ancient and indigenous history of the Black Hills. When it comes to researching the ancient and archaeological history of the Black Hills, you will inevitably find that the American mythology is so strongly favored that you could be forgiven for thinking that the site sprung, fully formed, onto the face of the earth in the mid-1800s, at the same time as European settlers were trekking across the continent. Nearly every article, aside from those dry and dusty academic ones, will only consider the history of the last century and a half, directly referencing the gold rush and the Indian Wars, but not the interesting geology of the site, nor the thousands of years of indigenous history. The Black Hills themselves are a high area of land separated by a ridge among the plains of South Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana. They have been designated as a sacred space and a place of safety and food preservation for thousands of years. For the Lakota, commonly known as the Sioux, it is an area that represented the heart of everything that is, and pilgrimages were made into the Black Hills every year to give back to the heart and breath of the earth, as well as to follow the buffalo back out of the hills in the spring after they had wintered within the hills themselves. There's evidence of around 12,000 years of use and habitation in the Black Hills, also known as Hesapa and Lakota, or Black Mountains, because they look dark in color at a distance. Although the Lakota maintain the strongest claim to the Black Hills as their homeland, the Cheyenne, Omaha, Arapaho, Kiowa, and Kiowa Apache have also long held the Black Hills to be sacred. To understand the history of Mount Rushmore, you must understand that it is one rocky bluff among the Black Hills. The particular bluff has a few Lakota names, which I will not attempt to pronounce because I have not studied the language, but one translates to Six Grandfathers and another one translates to Cougar Mountain. It gained the name Six Grandfathers from Black Elk, the celebrated medicine man who was recorded in the book Black Elk Speaks, which is probably the first book you're ever going to read if you go into Indigenous studies. He had a vision of the mountain, quote, of the sacred six directions: west, east, north, south, above, and below. The directions were said to represent kindness and love, full of years and wisdom, like human grandfathers. So on from the indigenous history, which is actually quite hard to study. Like I said, it's very hard to find these resources because nobody wants to think about anything before about 1850. There's also the settler history of the Black Hills, which actually does extend further back than 1850, but it goes back to French occupation of the area, which the United States doesn't like to talk about. So by far the easier time to study is what happened in the Black Hills during the time of settler migration, the so-called Indian Wars, and the Black Hills Gold Rush. Several points of contact have been made with the tribes in the northern plains, primarily with French explorers and traders pre-Louisiana Purchase, and ongoing contact was kept with fur traders that spread west before large-scale settlements were established. As settlements started to cross traditional Sioux territory, the first Treaty of Fort Laramie in 1851 was drawn up, part of which guaranteed the Sioux sole rights to the Black Hills. The settler migration westward was spurred on by the gold rush at Pikes Peak and at the end of the 1850s. Miners and settlers constantly crossed the land already protected by the treaties with the tribes. To compound matters, the U.S. government was already waging a deadly campaign against the buffalo, ostensibly to clear the land for railroads, cattle ranchers, and settlers, but also as a concerted effort to starve and displace the plains tribes. The value of the buffalo cannot be overstated to many people in North American plains, and the U.S. government knew that. From the mid to late 1800s, the number of buffalo was cut drastically, from tens of millions to less than 100 survivors by 1890. As an aside, one of the most heartbreaking things is when you start to study this time period, especially in this area of North America, you'll constantly come upon pictures of stacked buffalo skulls kind of on the side of the railroad and all that. And it's because, like I said, the government wanted to clear the land for white people's use, but by killing the buffalo, you not only deprived the people of the area their food source, because they did mainly eat buffalo, especially after the spring. But you also lost everything that the buffalo also did. So the buffalo were important for making sure that the grasslands stayed healthy, for making sure that pests didn't overrun the area. The buffalo also provided their skins, which make up their teepees, so you effectively took away their housing, because once your buffalo skin was done, you couldn't kill another buffalo to make a new teepee skin. It also took away the horn and the hooves that you used for glue. It took away the bone that you used for tools. It completely decimated the economy, if you want to call it that, of the people who lived in the Northern Plains. And even though the government didn't have, buffalo are free game, everybody should go kill them, they did encourage private people to say, hey, we're sponsoring this buffalo hunt. Let's see if we can go kill 200 animals.
So was it just like, hey, we're just going to go shoot a whole bunch of buffalo, or was
exactly that?
Just like, and was it like on like a bounty system of you get rewarded if you bring in X number?
Well, for one thing, once the settlers started killing the buffalo, they understood that a buffalo skin is highly prized. For travelers, kind of towards the end of the century, once automobiles started to become a thing, you would constantly see people who were rich enough to own an automobile would also be rich enough to own a buffalo robe, because it would keep you warm while you're in this open-topped automobile. So they did kill them for some of that. I don't know if there's specifically a bounty system, but and kind of the same way that you can sponsor somebody to go to Africa and shoot whatever large creature they want you to shoot out there, a lion or something like that. They would sponsor like sightseeing trips kind of things. You would go on the newly built railroad and use rifles and shoot the buffalo from the moving train. That's
some like Sarah Palin level shit.
It's ridiculous, especially because you're on a moving train. You can't get out and possibly take the skin, take the meat. Buffalo is really tasty to eat. I mean, if anybody gets to try it, but it was just
it's delicious. I don't eat meat, and I'll still say it's delicious.
But it was just this wholesale destruction to erase everything that existed in the Northern Plains.
Sweet, that's fucking terrible.
Yeah. So when I was researching this, I wanted to bring up something specifically to twist the thumb screws on Nelson and the rest of the podcast. So here we go. I just want to add that this podcast and other Southern leftists enjoy extolling the actions of one General William Tecumseh Sherman.
Yeah.
You saw me already post about this. You know it's coming.
I saw your post.
Kill all your idols.
I know.
Settlers have no legitimacy on stolen land. You get to listen to me.
I know.
Since I believe you see him as
break my heart.
Since I believe you see him as the logical architect of the burning of the Confederacy, never forget that he was also a colonizer, and is quoted as saying, in reference to how to deal with the quote-unquote Indian problem, it's recorded on June 26, 1869, in the Army-Navy Journal. Quote, General Sherman remarked in conversation the other day that the quickest way to compel the Indians to settle down to civilized life was to send 10 regiments of soldiers to the plains with orders to shoot buffaloes until they become too scarce to support the Redskins. I take personal joy in kicking down colonizer heroes, and I'm not sorry.
I mean, it's cultural genocide.
I know.
Oh, hi, Will.
Hey, sorry, I'm late.
Gold.
No, but it's part of...
Okay, that was fun. Anyway.
God bless. That's fantastic.
I'm just gonna go as a punching bag for Halloween. Obviously.
No, you'd be quicker to just dress up as Sherman. Then I mean, there you go.
Oh my God, yeah. I could scare some old white folks if I dressed up as Sherman. That'd be pretty funny.
I mean, you'd scare a lot more people than that, but okay.
Anyway,
I will continue.
Please do. I have a feeling this is going to be a recurring thing throughout the episode. So,
because you guys aren't interrupting me as often, I'm getting through this a lot faster than I expected. So there's going to be time at the end for a bonus round of Nelson burning.
God damn it.
I'm not even the ringleader here, bud.
I knew this was coming. Kai and I talk all the time. I knew this was coming.
I mean, like you know, you're the common denominator, and that's all I have to say about it.
Oh my God. What is it? What was it, Kai? The forbidden gender? That was the best one.
Oh, yeah. The gender that shall not be named.
The gender that shall not be named. Alrighty.
Are you guys playing Inside Baseball?
Huh?
No, it was a fan that said it on the. Oh yeah, I guess so. Never mind.
Man, I don't read what our fans say. Like, no offense, you guys, but
Fuck y'all.
Our unmiked co-host.
know you, and I'm real busy.
Who is the drummer of Rush? Because that's Kate for us. Like,
Pert?
did not like Neil Peart. Did not like talk to fans. Did not like going out in public. Did not like any. Just play drums. And that's Kate. Kate just podcast. Fuck the fans. You want an autograph? Fuck you.
So fucking friendly. Fuck you. Okay, well, Kai, what were you talking about?
All right, I'm going to talk about killing buffalo some more, okay? Buckle in.
Buckle up, buckaroos. Let's go.
The slaughter of the buffalo led to more internal conflicts between tribes whose territory had been agreed upon in the 1851 treaty. And as settlers streamed into protected land, the U.S. military increased their presence in native lands in an effort to protect the trespassers and subdue the native people. The fort system across the plains acted as a prison camp in many ways. When native people were starved or otherwise displaced and destitute, their only place to turn were military forts, which may or may not provide them with food and shelter. Often, it only prolonged their suffering at a near starvation level. The 1851 treaty negotiated annuities to the tribes as a quote-unquote repayment for the land they lost to the settlers, and when those annuities failed to be paid, there are stories of settlers saying to just let the starving natives, quote, eat grass. That comment eventually led to the Dakota uprising in Minnesota, which I will cover more later. Eventually, it became clear that a new treaty would have to be drawn up, which leads us to the Treaty of Fort Laramie, 1868, which is the sponsor of this episode and the bane of my life. As a personal aside, I have spent a lot of my time discussing this particular treaty. It is the legal basis for many conflicts that I will cover later. I suggest anyone who is interested in the history of Indigenous activism and protest to take a serious look at the Treaty of Fort Laramie, 1868, and particularly that one. Don't look at the 1851. The 1868 treaty is made up of 17 articles, but the main gist of it has to do with what tribes were given which lands, including the Black Hills, which were given solely to the Lakota. Here I want to mention that many conversations about treaties made at this time are dominated by settlers bringing up how wars between the tribes were as harmful as oppression waged by the U.S. government and military. It is true that the Northern Plains were a hotspot of war between tribes, and similar land conflicts existed all over North America well into the age of colonization. That is also true for many lands across the globe. I do not personally believe it is worthwhile to discuss this with colonizers because the nuance of our own conflicts is lost upon a people who do not see us as individuals, but as a pest to be eradicated. When the full scope of colonization was realized, however, new allies were made of historical enemies. This is a point that is considered by the great European thinkers, but never extended to us. I will say it now and say it for the rest of my life. The metrics of civilization were made by Europeans in order to only consider Europeans civilized. If you want to talk about civilization, though, consider that this new treaty was upheld by the US government for less than 10 years. White settlers were not completely expelled from the Sioux territory in the 1868 treaty signing. The treaty negotiated for protections of travelers, railroad and construction workers, and surveyors in the territory. During the time of the Pikes Peak Gold Rush, there were rumors of gold being in the Black Hills, and by 1874, General George Armstrong Custer, yes, that Custer, was told to make an exploratory mission into the hills. While this mission was under the guise of inspecting the area for a suitable location for a new fort to be built, it is easily disregarded when the presence of geologists and miners were part of the mission. As a result of this expedition, traces of gold were found in the rivers, and soon another gold rush would begin. The U.S. government offered to buy the land from the Sioux, but was refused. Soon, stuck between the destruction of the buffalo herds encouraged by the U.S. and the cessation of money annuities following the 1868 treaty, Lakota hunters chose to hunt off reservation lest their people starve. Eventually, this would lead to the Great Sioux War, culminating in the defeat of the 7th Cavalry, also known as Custer's Last Stand or the Battle of Little Bighorn. But to the indigenous combatants, it is known as the Battle of Greasy Grass, which was one of the hosts from the last podcast I was on. Retaliation to this defeat came quick in the form of complete starvation of the people, following Sitting Bull's flight to Canada and Crazy Horse's assassination in 1877. Without a unifying leader and with many sick and starving Lakota, the U.S. was in a prime position to force the sale of the Black Hills and gain access to the minerals within. This breach of the treaty was pounced on by the U.S., and they sent along the Many Penny Agreement. This agreement stated that appropriations of food would not be awarded to the Lakota unless they ceded 900,000 acres, including the Black Hills, to the United States. Faced with starvation, disenfranchisement.
Hold on for a second. 900,000 acres. Like, I need more. I'm not a spatial person, and that's a real big number. So it included the Black Hills. What else did it include? Like, how big is 900,000 acres? Because that's like a lot of acres.
You can think of it as the size of the national and state parks that now exist in South Dakota, Wyoming, and southern Montana. And those are big-ass states. And it stretches all the way across there. It includes the Custer Battleground. It includes several national forests. It includes I think it includes the Badlands as well, and the Black Hills. The Black Hills aren't the size of a mountain range, and they're geologically different to a mountain range, but it's similar to seeding an entire mountain range.
Jesus Christ. Okay, thank you.
Yes, no problem. So, faced with starvation, disenfranchisement within the U.S. legal system, and the survival of their people, the Many Penny Agreement was signed with only about 10% of adult Lakota men present. The 1868 treaty stipulated that Lakota lands could not be signed away unless 3/4 of adult Lakota men were present, but this was ignored. The strength of indigenous resistance in the Northern Plains waned from then until what is considered the final blow, the massacre at Wounded Knee in December of 1890. So now there's going to be a jump of nearly 50 years where we come to the construction of Mount Rushmore. Now, obviously, things were happening in this time, but the territories that were there, so it was the Dakota Territory, Wyoming Territory, Montana Territory, those were turned into states in the meantime. So most of it was just kind of settlers getting their shit together. So, while there are more injustices that are tied to these actions than I could discuss, there is now a jump in time from 1920 to 1925, nearly 50 years after the Many Penny Agreement. Around 1925, a New York lawyer was sent to the Black Hills to secure options for a tin mine by the name of Charles E. Rushmore. During this time there spent among the miners, he noted that the particular bluff, previously known as Six Grandfathers or Cougar Mountain, had no designated name, and that the miners had taken to calling the mountain after himself. The name had only become officially recognized in 1930. With the Black Hills...
Wait, so this dude was just straight up like, that's my mountain. Like, I'm just gonna, like, he actually went outside and, like, just, like, stood on a lot and was like, this is Kate Park. Moving forward, and just according to people start calling it Kate Park.
According to his story, while he was there trying to secure the rights to this tin mine and spending it around these miners, the miners had liked him. And that he said, hey,
I'm gonna go out on a limb and be like, no, they didn't.
Well, I don't know, they might have. It's settler talk. What do I care? So he said to them, hey, what's the name of that rock? And they said, oh, I don't know. There had been some other kind of colloquial names. It had been called Sugarloaf Mountain, which I think was also a secondary name for Stone Mountain, because both of those two bluffs do resemble old sugar loaves. So there's kind of names so that people could understand where they were geographically, but not a accepted name that was put down in the geology of the state. And there is more to the story when I get further down. But yeah, it was basically like, they liked me, and so they called it after me, and there you go.
Man, I hope that, like, secretly they were all sitting around just be like, yeah, you know, I got to ride up Douchebag Mountain later today. I do not believe for 2 seconds that they were just like, what a nice guy. Mountain after him.
Douchebag Mountain.
That's not how it works, because it's like they're laborers, and that's not how they be doing. That's bullshit. I'm not
I can't
buying that.
imagine tin mining is very cool work either. That sucks.
I mean, out in South Dakota, and so this would have been 1925, so probably in the early 20s. Yeah.
Miners love owners. It's their favorite.
No, he was just a lawyer. He was the lawyer discussing the rights for the owners.
There's so many folk songs written about how much they love the bosses.
That's one that's like, my manager's a cool guy.
I don't need a union. The union's bad.
Those two are in the songbook right next to Going Up Douchebag Mountain.
Yeah, you know,
Go around Douchebag Mountain when she comes. We go around Douchebag Mountain when she comes.
All right, so are you ready to get into the KKK again?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I don't get to talk about it that much this time because I covered all of it in the last one.
The important thing is that the one thing that miners love even more than bosses is the goddamn KKK. So I'm just like, we're doing all of it.
I just love the second Tommy came in is when Kiaza talked about the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh my god, I'm sorry.
Look, that's my favorite part. Those are my people.
Tommy, I keep forgetting you're here because you logged in as Satan.
I didn't know if we were going to talk about that, but yeah.
I mean, Tommy knew we were talking about white people, so he logged in as Satan. There you go.
Bullshit. Satan is a woman. Moving on.
Oh, Lilith.
All right,
Anyway.
so with the Black Hills now in the hands of the U.S. government, the state historian of South Dakota came up with a plan to increase tourism after reading about Gutzon Borglum's unsuccessful attempt at carving into the side of Stone Mountain, Georgia, which was our last podcast with me in it. For anyone who hasn't listened to the previous episode I was on, 1, why not? And 2, Gutzon Borglum was the first sculptor hired to blast the likenesses of Confederate generals into Stone Mountain, Georgia. However, there were significant financial differences between himself and the trustees responsible for his hiring, and he exited the project, but not before charges were levied against him, and he fled to South Carolina with his plans. He was also heavily associated with the KKK, and I would suggest listening to that episode to get the full explanation of how his participation with the KKK gained him the job in the first place. So, there were other suggestions for large-scale carvings posed by Borglum once he arrived in the Black Hills, including Lewis and Clark, Buffalo Bill Cody, Oglala Lakota leader Red Cloud, and others being carved into the Needles, which are a series of giant granite pillars, before the location of Mount Rushmore was chosen for its large, flat surface. Work began in October of 1927, and at its completion in October 1941, it cost a total of nearly $990,000, $17 million today. I know, Nelson, you've been there. Do you think anybody should pay $17 million for that?
No. I was so disappointed when I went there. I was like 18. We're going cross country, and I see this. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. You know, I didn't understand decolonization and stuff back then. I voted for Obama. And so, like, I get up to the thing. I'm like, oh, it's going to be huge, like, in the pictures.
That was a weird aside, man.
I was like, oh, this is going to be great. The pictures make it look so cool. And I got there. I'm like, where's this fucking thing?
He said, I voted for Obama like a good white liberal.
Exactly. That was 18-year-old me. Now, like, 30-year-old me is like, I'm going to fucking kill white people. But I see this and I'm just like, it's ridiculous. It's stupid. Like, it's really stupid.
Yeah, the vantage point that they chose for it specifically from pictures makes it look like it's much bigger than it actually is.
Exactly.
But the actual carvings are about 60 feet tall, so that's like the size of a small apartment building, maybe.
Wow. Higher in the air than like the height of Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, well, the bluff itself isn't massive, but the carvings are only like 60 feet tall.
I had to get a quarter and put it in one of those machines, like the binoculars.
To see it better.
Yeah, I was like, this is bullshit.
And they just left all that rubble, trash, just the blown up parts of the mountain, like right underneath it.
Honey, the whole thing is trash.
No.
Touche.
The rock itself, I don't want to insinuate is trash. The carving is trash.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is like the time period when. So I was watching a thing earlier today about like what Nantucket whalers used to do and how they completely decimated the ecosystem of several small islands around South America. That's just par for the course. Just leaving rocks is like the least of the crimes of white people.
No, but you would think they'd want to church it up a bit. I mean, come on.
If white people just left rocks, we wouldn't be in this place. We wouldn't be in the
Be
state
good
of
white
things we
people
are.
leave rocks like the Romans.
Whoa,
Yeah,
whoa.
come at me.
Whoa, look.
I have a whole thought on that though, because it's like, because this is more like peak white people shit, where because only white people do this. So like, no, like just leaving rocks, like it feels really innocuous by comparison to like what we're like talking about in the context of colonization.
Yeah.
But like there's like huge issues in like protected areas of people making like the little rock stacks
Yeah.
on hiking trails and stuff to be like, oh look, I just want somebody to know that I was here because we're the center of our own universe because white people. And that's how we be doing. But like these little innocuous rock stacks where people think where it's like, I'm not leaving something, these are found objects from the area or whatever, are apparently like fucking up whole creek beds, like, rerouting water streams, like throwing off like amount of algae growing in areas, like completely screwing up entire ecosystems because people like can't just not stack rocks on top of each other.
So there's a lot.
We can't even leave rocks around, right?
There's honestly there's a lot of like ties that you can make to this, but one that I'm thinking of particularly is that once high-profile murders started to become a thing in kind of the late 1800s and into the 1900s, it was a big deal to go to the location of a high-profile murder and take a souvenir.
Who fucking loves true crime? White bitches.
I was about to say, back then they picked up rocks. Now they just make a fucking Netflix
they picked up
documentary out of
rocks.
it.
They would strip the bark from trees. They would take like weird pictures. They would have like people selling popcorn and balloons around there.
Can I tell you like how proud of myself that I'm a white woman with a podcast and it's not about true crime?
Shout out to our friends.
Yo, we're totally doing a true crime episode though.
Nelson, we're supposed to do that haunted episode, and I'm going to bring it up then.
Yes, we have to.
Drink so much rosé. Can we record it over brunch? Anyway, I'm sorry. I completely derailed that.
This is. Wait, there's already a Southern true crime podcast. Damn it!
It's already it's a thing that like that I don't know if other people do, but I've seen white people do it. Is that they all think, well, if I just do this one tiny thing, and then 10,000 of them do this one tiny thing, and suddenly the creek has no room for salamanders to lay their eggs in, and there's rock falls happening in Monument Valley, and and the trees are all stripped of their bark because of you bitches.
Yeah, we're not a good people.
One white person picks up a rock, and then all of a sudden you have the United States. What the fuck happened?
Yeah, dude. That rock was called Plymouth.
Oh my god!
I just got serious vibes of, and that kid was Albert Einstein.
It was too heavy to pick up. So we just built an entire country around it.
Look, I'm supposed to come back in November for Indigenous Hell Month, all right? And I'm going to be talking about that shit.
Oh my god, that was fucking perfect, Kate. Holy shit. That
Bravo.
was fucking perfect.
Bravo, bravissimo.
That was beautiful. Okay. Yeah, Kai, continue, please.
Yeah,
please
okay.
educate us. This is like
Right.
this is better than a Ken Burns documentary.
Okay, old man.
You know what? Yeah, okay, you win. I need New Balances.
Okay, shut up. U.S. Senator Peter Norbeck, a former governor, and Congressman William Williamson, because white people can't name, were early champions of Mount Rushmore. Norbeck especially had a vision for the memorial in the Black Hills. He was a driving force behind the development of Custer State Park, Badlands National Park, Wind Cave National Park, Needles Highway, the Black Hills Game Sanctuary, and Sylvan Lake. Like Stone Mountain, which was facing its own funding issues at the same time, the funding for carving Mount Rushmore was a constant struggle. Eventually, the federal government paid the majority of the cost, about 85% of funding, or $836,000. Private donors also provided money, including $5,000 from one Charles E. Rushmore. It was the largest single private donation, which may have clinched naming the mountain in his honor. Like I said, I was going to get back to it later. Federal backing got a boost when President Calvin Coolidge spent nearly 3 months in the Black Hills in 1927. After a most unusual invitation from the bombastic Borglum, a wreath bearing an invite was dropped from a plane at the state game lodge where he was staying. Coolidge spoke at the dedication of the memorial on August 10, 1927. Knowledge of Borglum's ties to white supremacy, if not the KKK by name, was not a secret. He is quoted as saying, "I would not trust an Indian offhand 9 out of 10 times, whereas I would not trust a white man 1 out of 10. He was also the one to decide which presidents would be carved into the granite. According to the National Park Service, he chose them based on these reasons. George Washington, since he was the first president and represented the foundation of American democracy. Thomas Jefferson, as the primary author of the Declaration of Independence and for acquiring the massive Louisiana Purchase from France, which doubled the size of the country. Among the land acquired was where South Dakota now exists. Abraham Lincoln for his courage and leadership during the Civil War with the clear desire to keep the nation united, and Theodore Roosevelt as representative of the industrial development of the nation and for conservation efforts." However, no deconstruction of white supremacy is complete without looking at the other side of these quote-unquote honored presidents, from the side of the people they wronged, namely in this instance, the indigenous people of what they claimed as the United States. George Washington had gained the name Town Destroyer from the Hautanashi people because of his orders to burn any village down his soldiers encountered. It is alleged that on his orders, 40 Hautanashi villages were burned and the survivors were left to die of exposure over the winter.
Holy shit. I did not know that. That's something they actually do not teach in fucking
And I'm Hautanashi, so I'm going to be here telling you about it.
Fuck.
Abraham Lincoln ordered the largest mass execution in the United States following the capture of 38 Dakota warriors. This was at the end of the 1862 Dakota War, where the Dakota were forcibly moved from their homelands and food sources to the point that people were eating grass in order to survive, as I mentioned before. The subsistence rations distributed by the military had ceased. The warriors struck out and waged war against the settlers in order for the people to live peaceably in their homelands, but were captured. They were hanged in Mankato, Minnesota, after Lincoln had asked to review the convictions himself. Thomas Jefferson, and George Washington by that measure, was a slave owner and was the architect of the Indian Removal Act. He was the first president to actively pursue westward expansion and enacted policies of removing indigenous people from their homelands for the, quote, security of white settlers. Outside of outright seizure of the land, he also supported using the trading posts of the frontier to drive indigenous people into debt and seize land that way. This debting method netted the U.S. 200,000 square miles of land in 9 states. Theodore Roosevelt is famous for what he said during an 1886 speech in New York, quote, "I don't go so far as to think that the only good Indians are dead Indians, but I believe 9 out of every 10 are, and I shouldn't like to inquire too closely in the case of the 10th. Known as the father of the national park system in the U.S., it is rarely acknowledged how those relatively unspoiled natural landscapes were acquired to make the parks. They were seized from nations through a policy of allotment. This broke up tribal lands into individual plots of land and made them easier to piece apart and seize. This form of individualism was meant to as an assimilating force to make indigenous people into, quote, Americans. So even though Gutzon Borglum chose which presidents to put there, he never saw the finished product because he died 7 months before completion, and that is my only solace."
Yay, he died.
It's funny to me when that happens. Like I think it's always super funny when you're like, okay, so like we all know that like the president of the United States of America currently has COVID. He has not tested negative for COVID. The son of a bitch has COVID. That's the end of my like thoughts on that. But like when he went home, I said to the boys that like I really don't want him to die in the White House because that would be like a really shitty White House ghost. And then some person who had the same thought that I had tweeted about it, and somebody had replied to it like, nah, because now he's gonna have to live for eternity with all of the ghosts of slaves that built the White House. And so like I sincerely hope that, you know, our super cool KKK sculptor friend here you know, is roaming the site of Mount Rushmore, and his body, like his spirit, cannot be laid to rest until somebody comes and cleans up all these rocks that got left on the ground there from his shitty building project, and that his tortured soul is also in torment from like the spirits of all of the people who were displaced off of this fucking land. And so he has to like exist for eternity with this shitty thing that he did and a big giant mess of rocks that no one's ever gonna pick up. And that's how I feel about that.
Just floating between walls, bitching about Anna Wintour. Looking, calling out, asking about.
You know what I'm thinking, right?
Wait,
you know
what?
I'm thinking. You know what I'm thinking now, right?
Wait,
If
is
he
this gonna be
dies in
part of the
White-
episode?
Yes. The fucking Ghost Adventures after Trump dies. The Ghost Adventure in the White House.
Oh my god, I want to see Zach Bagans yelling at the ghost of the president.
Donald Trump, are you here now? I'm here.
Holy shit! Holy shit!
This is huge.
Because that, I mean, like, cause you like, I
Hell
mean,
is the hottest.
whether you believe in ghosts or not, whether you believe in spirits or not, Zach Bagans is like really rude to the spirits. Who's like,
Okay, so I'm serious. Nelson and I are gonna do this haunted episode for Halloween, but I am like obsessed with Zach Bagans now, and not in
Oh
any
my
way
God,
it's like,
yes.
oh, he's so buff, or oh, he's so silly. No, this man is crazy, and I am insisting that I find out what exactly is going on with him.
he's a fucking good businessman.
I own
Yeah.
his
Holy shit.
I own his books. I watch his TV shows.
Kai and I have literally talked for hours just about Ghost Adventures and our love affair with Ghost Adventures because it's the best fucking trash comedy show on TV.
Oh my god, I love it so much. I love it so much.
We have
like,
to.
Aaron, go in the Lincoln bedroom. Aaron, go in the
Alone.
Lincoln bedroom.
You have to go in alone.
He'll be like, no, Zach, come on, man. Don't let me do it again.
What was that?
What
was that a creek?
Oh god, it was a ghost. It's Bill Clinton like wandering the hallways, lost. Do I still live here?
Ghost of the White House has to become like our own fanfic or something.
Oh
like
my
we gotta
God,
sit down and
yeah.
write this before
Holy
anybody else
shit.
does.
Yes.
Zach Bagans, if you're listening, because we know that, you know, friend of the podcast, Zach Bagans, is, you know, a huge fan of labor history and contemporary issues.
Hey, he was the first person I heard about.
People of color, and he really particularly cares about Southern history and current events through a leftist perspective in particular. So Zach Bagans, since we know you're listening, would you please do an episode in the White House?
You sound like you're doing a seance right now. Zach Bagans, are you there? No, but look, okay.
I need Axe body spray, a tap out shirt.
Yeah, he's got to go in his cowboy cosplay.
So every box in my home clearly houses a dibbook.
Yep.
So, in your cool museum.
Oh my god.
Haddad.
I was so pissed off that I went to Las Vegas before his museum opened up. I could have gone.
Wait. She said that it's like legitimately creepy, like the way that it is laid out, and like temperature change it, like the clearly like everything is super temperature controlled to make it increasingly more eerie as you go through. Like apparently it's like
he would
super
do
well
that.
done.
He's got fucking like hidden rooms and passageways in there because he did it himself.
And
Oh
the
my
motherfucking dibbock box
God.
from eBay. Does he have that doll? Does he have that big giant creepy doll that I don't like?
Oh, Annabelle.
Which one?
I think he did. I think he.
No, he doesn't own that.
No, Robert the doll.
Oh no, I hate that motherfucker.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't like
God.
dolls to begin with, and that's like a big terrible doll.
That
This
doll-
has gone completely sideways.
Look, okay, I'm gonna say this real quick. That doll, Robert the doll, exists in a old fort that was turned into a museum in Key West, and I know because I'm from Florida and I've been there several times, and I refuse to look at him.
Oh, yeah, I don't like that doll. That doll can go fuck itself. Fuck you, Robert.
All right, back from Ghost of the White House, Nelson. We have to talk about this later, but
Yes,
shall I finish
please.
this?
Yes, we have to do this. Yeah, let's finish. Let's yeah. Keep going.
All right. So moving on from the construction up to 1941, Mount Rushmore and the Black Hills represent a rich history of Indigenous protest. There are two ways in which the Indigenous people of the area have fought to have their ancestral and spiritually important lands returned to them, and that is through direct protest and litigation. The Sioux had no way to litigate against the United States government concerning the Black Hills until 1920, but the claim, alleging a Fifth Amendment violation concerning just compensation, was dismissed in 1942. With the Indian Claims Commission of 1946, the claim was resubmitted, asking for fair compensation of the lands, and it was reached that the Sioux were entitled to compensation of $17.5 million without interest, but they were not awarded at that time, as the question of whether they were entitled to interest as well existed. Pursuant to a change in the Indian Claims Law in 1978, the arguments were reheard, including the question of interest, and the court found that the executive branch had abandoned its treaty obligations, that the Sioux were entitled to interest of 5% onto a value of $17.1 million dating from 1877. The sum now totals $570 million, though the estimated total value of extraction done to the site is around $4 billion. The Sioux have not accepted the payment and insist instead on the land being returned to them to this day. Direct protests have also been made at the site for decades, especially since the birth of many Indigenous rights groups in the 1960s and onwards. Notable among them include an occupation of Mount Rushmore in August 1970 by the United Native Americans group, and then again in June 1971 by the American Indian Movement to demand that the federal government honor the Treaty of Fort Laramie 1868, which had granted the Sioux rights to all land in South Dakota west of the Missouri River, including the Black Hills. During the latter, protesters armed with baseball bats reached the top of the monument and erected its ceremonial altar behind Roosevelt's head. Park Service rangers warned them not to set up camp and called the National Guard to surround the mountain. Protesters occupied the mountain for more than 12 hours, demanding that the government honor its treaty, that a federal gunnery range north of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation be returned to the Oglala Sioux, and that all concessions and enterprises at national parks or monuments be turned over to tribes. 20 natives, 9 men, and 11 women were arrested and charged with climbing the monument. Protesters demanded jury trials and cited the 1868 treaty as their defense, which affirmed the Black Hills as sacred land. The federal judge, who was a landowner in the Black Hills, recused himself, and the charges were eventually dismissed. 49 years later, in July of 2020, another large-scale protest was held at the road leading to Mount Rushmore in response to President Donald Trump arriving for a speech and fireworks party. I personally watched around 2 hours of live coverage by Unicorn Riot on the day of the protest. It was well attended, with around 200 treaty defenders taking to the road leading to Mount Rushmore, holding up tourists for around 3 hours. Eventually, Nick Tilson, president of Indian Collective, and 20 other people who were prepared to be arrested gathered in the middle of the road and were arrested. As of today, we know that Nick Tilson will go to trial for 3 felonies and is the only one facing felony charges from the protest. He could face up to 16 years in prison. After the protest was cleared, Trump spoke about the activists, saying that protesters have waged, quote, a merciless campaign to wipe out our history. This movement is openly attacking the legacies of every person on Mount Rushmore, Trump said. He also said some on the political left wish to defame our heroes, erase our values, and indoctrinate our children. Trump dismissed.
Yes.
I mean, yes, but not in the way you mean it.
Twice a day.
I agree with him.
Trump dismissed the protests. Their goal is not a better America. Their goal is to end America, again, threatening me with a good time. He said,
hell yeah, let's do it.
He described protesters as, quote, evil people. That is an attitude that is carried on in his presidency. The Friday before Columbus Day, which is just this past Friday as we're recording, he is quoted as saying in his Columbus Day proclamation, quote, "Sadly, in recent years, radical activists have sought to undermine Christopher Columbus's legacy. These extremists seek to replace discussion of his vast contributions with talk of failings, his discoveries with atrocities, and his achievements with transgressions." Could you imagine?
Correct.
How dare you besmirch the man that created America?
By the way, hey, what national holiday is tomorrow? Like the day after we're recording this. Does anyone know what national holiday that is?
Oh God, I think it's what did my friend call it?
In
Christopher
Montgomery.
Columbus Day.
National Slave Trade Day. Hooray!
I never liked Columbus.
That's one of the best bits in The Sopranos is when Furio doesn't like Columbus. Just
For
because
fuck's sake, are we doing this again?
no, because he's from Genoa.
What's wrong with Genoa?
Whatever, I'm sorry.
Look, we've talked about this before. Nelson, because he has to bring up being Italian in every goddamn episode.
Yep.
We will cover this again, that Columbus was in fact from Genoa, but because of the time that he left Genoa, Italy was not a thing, and everybody else who we would call Italian today would hate him.
Whoa,
Exactly.
hold on.
I never liked Columbus. He's from a Genoa in the north.
Wait a minute. Nelson, you're Italian?
Wait, there's a podcast?
That's a podcast?
Oh yeah. This is a podcast.
What's a podcast?
Well, now I just have my conclusion, so then we can get to the roasting Nelson session.
Oh, we all know what the intro to this episode is going to be. I already know what the intro is going to be. So, talk it out.
So, what can we do now? There's a legal fund set up for Nick Tilson, which can be found at bhlegalfund.org, as in blackhillslegalfund.org. And there's a short movie made about the event, which can be found on YouTube, called Hesapa, Hesapa, a land back film. I also encourage you, as the audience, to look into the history of Indigenous resistance. Protests at Mount Rushmore are linked to protests against murdered Indigenous people in South Dakota, as they are linked to the occupation of Alcatraz and the occupation of Wounded Knee. Each step builds on the last. The Standing Rock protest against the Dakota Access Pipeline in 2016 is a direct descendant of the Treaty of Fort Laramie of 1868, because it is the same legal standing that the Lakota recognized protected the land from the construction. I implore you to look into the people whose land you live on, and I can guarantee you there is a history of resistance. As for Six Grandfathers itself, the carvings are as much a symbol of white supremacy as the artist chosen to complete it as the presidents who are now scarred into the landscape. The Black Hills have long been the heart of all that is, as sacred as a cathedral is in Europe, where holy wars were justified for hundreds of years. I would like to finish with the words of Gerard Baker, the first Native American superintendent of Mount Rushmore. When speaking of the Greasy Grass Memorial, he said, "The battleground represents the end of the way of life for the Indian people. When Indian people come here, they cry, they get mad for the loss of that way of life, that freedom. It's something we'll never get back, and that's what this place is for." Yahweh, thank you for having me back.
Thank you for being on.
Thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Thank you.
It was absolutely beautiful.
Any other questions?
What do you think about the movie Rushmore?
I've never seen it.
The Wes
I
Anderson movie.
I think that, my thoughts on that movie are that, like, you should find something that you love and do it for the rest of your life. And that Mark Mothersbaugh writes a hell of a good score.
Cool.
I am the whitest person.
Well, recommended. Podcast recommended.
I mean, okay.
The movie Rushmore has absolutely nothing to do with...
I was about to say,
I was
what?
joking.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
just...
it's a Will joke.
He's wise.
I mean, I'm not... Since tomorrow is Indigenous Peoples Day, as we have established, I am open to questions now and never again. So...
This is the one time of the year we get to ask questions. Oh,
if you want to ask me, do we all live in teepees? I will answer you, but I'll give you a real dirty look the entire time.
I got one. What can you tell me more about George Washington's reputation among the Hautanashi?
That's The Hautanashi.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's a Mohawk pronunciation. It's an Iroquois pronunciation, and that makes no sense to English speakers. Believe me. So, because of the way that colonization necessarily happened with Europeans landing on the East Coast to begin with, the Haudenosaunee, or the Iroquois people, who exist from the east with the Mohawk around Montreal and upstate New York, all the way across to the Great Lakes with the Oneida. There's six tribes in total in the Haudenosaunee, or the Iroquois Confederation. Because we were on the East Coast, we were some of the first people that would have met first the British colonizers, the French fur trappers, the Dutch who settled in northern New York. And our history with them was not quite the same as it was with a more entrenched colonialism as it spread west. For the most part, when we were first contacted, we didn't know the full extent of the atrocities that would happen, so we kind of regarded them as potential trade partners, not necessarily giving up land, but teaching them how to use it.
Whoops.
Yeah, that happened a lot, especially because, if you meet people from other countries and they're nice to you the first time, you don't think, oh man, that was a bad move. But apparently that is what's supposed to happen. So...
These white men are dangerous.
Exactly. I'm going to have that on a t-shirt one day.
There's aspects too of just misunderstandings of culture and what is deemed polite or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. Especially with the Haudenosaunee, because in the Iroquois tradition, women have institutional power, which was not something that happened with the Europeans, as we know. So when the Europeans were kind of regarding us the first time, they not only did they think us savages because of skins or whatever, or because of beads and feathers, they also did not understand our way of life whatsoever, including the fact that women had institutional power within our tribal structure. So that was kind of the first part of that. So the Mohawk, especially, that's my people, we were seen as kind of loyal to the crown, because at that point, the English settlers who were under the crown were more likely to treat us with some respect than the American colonists. So when Washington had forces moving north up into New York, that's where a lot of Mohawk people were. Because they were loyal to the English crown or the British crown as people who would treat them with some respect, he just decided, why don't we just burn down all their villages and see how that does them? That's not something that's really talked about. Usually Washington is the one president that people are like, oh, well, he might have owned slaves, but, he's a father.
Yeah, you don't really hear about war crimes, like what we would consider war crimes today, like during the Revolutionary War. It's kind of thought of as this clean war that was gentlemanly. But that's the first time I'm ever hearing. Yeah, God, no. That's the first time I'm hearing of that about Washington, because obviously people are like, we never learned about that in history. But that is literally something that's not taught in history. Well,
it happened before, I think this was before the proper War of Independence, I suppose, for the Americans.
Yes.
And because of the way that history classes are set up in most schools, you don't hear about anything prior to the Declaration of Independence. Or maybe they'll talk about they landed on Plymouth Rock, like we mentioned earlier, and then nothing happened for about 200 years. And then Declaration of Independence. They don't really talk about everything that happened in between there.
And they taught us how to grow corn, and it was good.
Washington was
Toronto. That's it. That's what you get. Is the Toronto story that's not real.
I can't wait till I come back in the November one, because that's going to be my Indigenous Hell Month one, and I am going to attack Thanksgiving, personally.
And it's somehow going to come back on me. It's you're going to attack Thanksgiving, but it's somehow going to be my fault. I understand.
I don't think
that,
there were any Italians present at that one. So
hey, no, not Italians. Just me personally. Somehow Thanksgiving is my fault. So it's fine. I've accepted this. I'll be the punching bag.
So everyone might not know. They might have understood up to now that I'm living in Europe. I live in the UK. I have done for like the last 10 years. And the irony is not lost on me that because I come from the United States and I'm used to Thanksgiving, I would invite British people to my house and cook them Thanksgiving as the Indian.
Oh my
Wow.
Did you cook them their shitty food?
No, I cooked them good. I bought pumpkin. I bought
Oh, hell
cranberries.
yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Did you deep fry a turkey?
No, disgusting.
Oh, Lord.
No, you cook a turkey with some maple syrup and with some cranberry juice, and it turns out
yum.
incredible.
Oh, that
No,
sounds
you
amazing.
brine it for 2 days in like a saltwater brown sugar brine, which I would also recommend putting some like quartered oranges and lemons, some fresh sage, some whole allspice, some whole black peppercorns.
Dude,
What?
Julia Childs over here.
What are you talking about, these spices? White people don't spice.
Whoa.
Oh, God damn it. A little coriander and a good imperial stout. It's got to be imperial stout on account of it's Thanksgiving.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and so let that brine for like 2 days and then stuff the bird with some quartered onions and some more sage and some more lemon wedges and then roast that bitch. And oh, that is a juicy bird. That is a juicy bird.
Okay.
That's my Thanksgiving recipe for you all.
I never want to hear the term juicy bird ever again.
Nelson, the next time I come on here, if you do not sign in with your name as Juicy Bird, I'm
Juicy
not
Bird?
talking to you.
Oh, my God, deal.
I want to know why you're so offended by my juicy bird.
God, you know how like some people cringe at the word moist?
Yeah,
Like that just made me cringe. Juicy
Why?
bird. It
That-
just
Why are
did.
you?
That's-
Why are you a fucking coward, man?
Wait, we already talked about how white
I'm
people
not
don't
a
spice.
coward. I will blast WAP at fucking full blast going down the street. And yeah, I just think Juicy Bird just, I don't know, just one of those terms.
Yeah,
Like,
it makes me shrivel.
It makes me go, buh.
Makes me turtle.
Like if like if Hank Hill was around, it'd be like, buh. I just picture Bobby going, Dad, Juicy Bird, and Hank going, buh, damn it, Bobby.
What's it, the white people's meat?
Really weird place to take that. And I'm so sad that none of you will ever get to enjoy my juicy bird.
Yeah, weren't you responsible for like the cookbook?
Tyler.
Tyler, it's the cookbook. I need to edit. So update on the cookbook. We have a new issue coming out soon. I have to, Tyler has written it. I have to copy edit it because Tyler
can't spell for shit.
Tyler writes things that resemble words, and then I translate them.
He's like writing both ways, like if Da Vinci wrote like a kindergartner.
So, Kate, you have to hold it up to a mirror and read it upside down.
Let me open one of these books. Let's take a look.
Somebody set off Nelson.
Yeah, banana nut bread pearl cake.
That sounds delicious.
It's banana nut bread.
I thought if you call it a pearl cake, you could make it a.
Oh my God, mute
Nelson,
him.
my God! I thought you could at least make it into like a Swiss roll or something.
I don't understand that there is literally not a single piece of punctuation in what I have.
I'm crying. I'm fucking crying right now.
And it's like, all of this being said, I make fun of him. Like, these are really good recipes, and he knows what he's goddamn doing.
He really does.
Oh yeah, he's really fucking.
No punctuation. One box of preferred pancake mix. I like Kodiak, but they're not ethical means Blaze.
I say you leave it in exactly like that.
Kate, oh my God.
Basically, you have to break it down so it's like we leave it as in very much in his voice, but you have to like break it down to figure out where to start and stop.
I wish you would log in right now, the episode, and just be like, hey, what are y'all talking about?
I'm just gonna go through just the ingredients, and then I'm not gonna get into like what you're supposed to actually do with them. But so that we got the preferred pancake mix, and we've got 1 ugly banana, 1 cups of chopped nuts, 1 cups of chopped nuts. I use walnuts, but I'm me and you're you.
This is brilliant.
1 tablespoon of cinnamon. You know the vibes. Steal that shit. Okay. Also, tablespoon was 2 words in the first one, and now it is 2 tablespoon. 2 words.
He's the Kerouac of cornbread.
Peanut butter. 2 tablespoon of peanut butter, because shit's good. Do it. Don't question it. As much maple syrup as you want, steal that again.
God damn it, Tyler.
There's a typo in here where he says to pray your skillet. It's great.
Wait, every good respecting Southerner praised their skillet, obviously.
I love him so much. I love this man so
Oh my
much.
God. It's fucking priceless.
This shit's fucking delicious.
I can't wait for him to hear this episode.
So many instructions in here to steal from Whole Foods, like throughout this whole.
Oh my God, yes.
I'm already like subscribed to the level of Patreon where you get the cookbook. I highly recommend doing so because 1, the recipes are fucking delicious. 2, they're hilarious. I will let you all guess how Tyler spelled sriracha.
No, please.
I can only imagine. No, it's better a mystery.
It's a teaser for you guys. Because he's a freaking angel gem of a person, and we can't function without him. Like, he's the goddamn best. Like, he's legit, like...
Oh, my God.
You can't read. It's amazing.
Jesus Christ. Oh, my God.
For the rest of my days, whenever I make something with bananas, I'm going to look for 1 ugly banana. Make sure I'm not attracted to any of them. Those are the ones I buy.
I know what he means. I know exactly what he means.
Yeah, banana that's, you know...
Seen better days.
Cook it or throw it at a bird.
And make it a juicy bird.
Juicy bird.
Oh, my God. All right, it's
if the
growing
juicy
on
bird
me.
is not in the next edition of this cookbook, I'm going to be sorely disappointed.
Oh my God, yes. Okay, juicy bird's growing on me now.
I'll give Tyler my turkey brine recipe for the next round of cookbook. I will get it.
I can't breathe.
It's
Oh
just
my
delicious.
God.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Like, I don't eat meat anymore, but like, I'm so good at cooking meat. Like, I'm so good at it.
Oh my God.
Memphis, I guess. It's just the Memphis.
Man, there's like... Yeah, that thought didn't make any sense. Move on.
I'm sorry.
Kai, do you have anything else you want to say?
I want to put it out there so that everybody else can get on your ass to make sure that I am here for the November episode for Indigenous Hell Month.
Oh, no, you will be.
Okay. Because I know how y'all like to record, and then it's like 3 weeks later, and I finally show up. I don't want it showing up in December. It's for November. You hear me?
That's
Tommy.
all on Tommy.
You gotta take point on that giant.
That's all on Tommy.
Satan's not listening, is he?
Satan, you owe me.
Listen, they're always ready.
Playing Dark Souls.
They're always ready within a week. Okay, never more, ever less. Just...
He's right. They're always ready within a week, but it's like the last minute. I'm like, God damn it, Tommy, where is he? He's like, don't worry, man, it's done. I got it. And then he'll send it to me, and I was like, God, why could
Listen,
Anyway.
you know, listen. I just critique. I keep going over and editing. Like I edit myself into a hole, and then you message me and say, "All right."
I feel you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Satan.
Oh, anytime. Satan's blessings.
Hail Satan.
Before we go, I do want to send a special shout out to that fly that landed on Mike Pence
Oh my God.
and stayed there for 2 minutes Like, what the fuck? What the?
So is this going to be the end of the last episode I heard you guys put out, where Nelson just goes on a 10-minute tirade about what's going to happen when Trump dies?
No. I saw your post. I saw your post about the fly. You messaged me about the fly. So when I get the fly, I'm not going to talk about.
Yeah,
the
I had to sit through that argument twice. Thanks.
The important thing about that fly is that it's the most powerful fly in America because it is the only fly in the entire world who can, through presence alone, make the entire country forget that Mike Pence just said that systemic racism doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's sort of sad to think about how that fly is already dead.
Oh god damn it! Why'd you have to bring it down like that?
No, I think the best was the cringy liberal jokes about the fly. Like what Stephen Colbert say was Mike Pence's only black friend. And I'm like, wow, Stephen Colbert.
Oh
wow.
my god, Nelson, you saw the one earlier that my friend tagged you in, where it's like where Bader Ginsburg said, "I sent the fly." Like, holy shit!
The dead Kennedys posted.
Oh my god, yeah.
Or the not Jello Biafra dead Kennedys. The shitty dead.
The shitty dead Kennedys. There is no hope.
I just think it's more of a statement on Pence, as he's just a fucking dead person. He's just dead. he's a fucking walking corpse, a walking Christian corpse.
He's Jesus.
Jesus wasn't Christian, bro. Like,
yeah, you're right. He's the Mike Pence is the Antichrist. I'm sorry.
How fucking awful would that, like, oh my god. I mean, it would make sense in the context of like contemporary Christians, but like, could you imagine some dude who was like, I worship myself.
Me and my 12
basically
friends.
Satanism. One church of Satan at least.
What was that? What was the joke?
Satan's a one, yeah.
The joke was
a band called Twin Temple. That if you guys are not into Twin Temple, it is satanic doo-wop, and it's really good.
Oh my god! The hardest thing to believe in the New Testament is that a 30-year-old man had 12 close friends. That's the hardest thing.
Did you write that
Okay.
joke
I was about to say.
How
did you steal that from
definitely
Nelson?
that's not me. I found that on Tumblr or some shit a while ago. It's all good.
Cool. All right, I want to go to bed.
Okay. Yo, don't. Okay, 'cause if you log off before I hit stop recording, we're fucked. So I'm gonna do the outro, hit stop recording, and then we can do whatever we want. So here we go. All right, at Dixieland, the proletariat, we believe the South will rise again, but this time for the right reasons, those being worker-owned means of production, decolonization, and self-determination for all oppressed peoples. Make sure to like us, follow us, and subscribe to us on social media at Dixie Prol. We are coming to you from the birthplace of the civil rights movement, Montgomery, Alabama, and the Bluff City, Memphis, Tennessee. We'd also like to recognize that we are recording on occupied land that rightfully belongs to the Muskogee and Chickasaw nations. Thank you, Kai, for coming back on. Please send me all the links to post in the show notes. Where people can donate to the bail funds, and anything else you want me to post in the show notes, I'll definitely do it. All right, y'all. Since Tyler,
subscribe to our Patreon so that you can find out how Tyler spelled sriracha.
Please, for the love of God, do it. All right, y'all. As Tyler would say, "Good Lord willing, the creek don't rise."
They
See
already
y'all
did.
next time. What?
Peace out, y'all. She's making a joke about the creek.
Oh, it did.
Tribe, and it was solid. All right.
That was good. Bye. But oh my God, Megan, you want to get the final word before we sign off?
Oh, that's a lot.
Tell us why we should all eat meat and not go vegan.
No, I will tell you again. No, that is not the moral of the story. We've been over this. No.
Oh man. Oh God. All right. So, any last words from anybody before we sign off? Before I do this outro.
Fuck Blue Horizon, fuck City, and fuck Union Busters.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear. Fuck No Evil Foods and Whole Foods and Amazon and everybody.
Yeah. Fuck it all.
Hell yeah. Fuck it all.
Fuck
All
the
right,
entire system.
Burn it down. All right, y'all. If that's it, Megan, I'm not going to mute you because we want to talk after we're done recording. And did you figure out how to unmute yourself?
Who, me? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because I'm going to mute everybody while I do this outro. So y'all stay on. We're going to talk a bit after we're done here. But anyway, y'all. At Dixieland the Proletariat, we believe the South will rise again, but this time for the right reasons, those being worker-owned means of production, decolonization, and self-determination for all oppressed peoples. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us on social media at Dixie Prol. We are coming to you from the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement, Montgomery, Alabama, and the Bluff City, Memphis, Tennessee. We would also like to recognize that we're recording on occupied land that rightfully belongs to the Muskogee and Chickasaw nations. Y'all, I know we were out for 2 weeks, but we are back. We have some great episodes coming up for y'all this month. And y'all stay tuned because we got some cool stuff and everyone will be back, even your favorite comrade Kate and brother William and former farmer Tyler Pig. And y'all, thank you to all our fans. We're getting bigger. We got about 30,000 downloads. We've been doing this for a year now. Actually, I want to say this is our Dirty 30 episode. We've been doing this for about a year. We started with our first episode October of last year, and so we're at 30,000 downloads in 1 year. Thank you all so much. Never thought we'd get this big, and we hope that we have 30,000 more downloads or more come next year. We're gonna keep doing this until we get dragged out and taken away by the federal police and thrown into a camp or shot. So, as Tyler would say, good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. We'll see y'all next time.